What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here, and in this video, we're going to talk about Rambo's combat cast. We're going to go over in depth all three of his preset tournament variations. We're also going to cover his basic attacks and his default special moves. With that being said, let's jump right in and take a look at Rambo's basic attacks.
Let's real quickly then, show a video and talk about Rambo's just his basic fight style, his movement, his kicks, his punches, that sort of thing.
So he has this knife and he uses it in most of his normal attacks. And you can see even there with his uppercut. I would say one thing that really stands out is his mid attacks. I think they're pretty good. They're pretty quick. He's a close quarter character because, you know, it's not like a sword or a machete or whatever, but I think the speed makes up for it. And this one's fun because he literally uses a rocket to stuff off the ground, which amuses me greatly. And then lastly, he has this dropkick, which is an overhead. It's pretty quick, and if he does 2 in a row, he gets a crushing blow. And then he has this throw, and it has a crushing blow with a really unique condition. It's loaded if he has not been hit or jumped in 10 seconds. So, yeah, and there you go. And he gets to get a combo off that stun when they hold their breath. So it's not the traditional requirement.
Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is look at his uppercut here. How his knife is on the way up, how he's got his knife like sticking up like this when he does it. I don't think that actually has any hurt box on it, so that's probably a very, very good anti-air. When it comes to his up-close attacks, basic attacks, you know, to be a master of up-close combat and transfer that from the movie to the fighting game, in fighting games, that means you got to have good mids and they got to be fairly quick. They did mention he has good, quick mids. What does that mean? Mids they didn't really say, oh, here are the speed of his mids. So what does quick really mean? Well, an average mid, speed-wise, is 13 frames. So in MK11, if your mid's 13 frames, that's about average speed. And that's a good kind of like barometer as far as like how slow or fast somebody's mid is. Anything over that is a slower mid. Anything under that is a faster mid. So if you have a mid that's like 9 frames, that's the speed of the fastest mids in the game. I'm guessing Rambo's along that quicker mid speed, that 10, 11, 12. If I had to guess, because it's a guess because I can't see frames obviously, I would say Rambo's in that 10 or 11 range. Now let's move on to his drop kick. So we see crushing blow here, 2 of them in a row trigger the crushing blow, and that's off an overhead. So yeah, drop kick, kind of like Aaron Black's overhead, 2 in a row, crushing blow you. The difference is, unlike Aaron Black, it doesn't have that long startup, that run animation, so you can do it right there in place, which I really, really like. Because he has other moves that kind of complement it, like we're going to move on to in the next part of his moves, he has this low slide that can also have a crushing blow on it. So he can be in mid-screen and mix you up between that overhead or the low. Or say he has you cornered and he drop kicks you, and now he has the low crushing blow loaded on the slide. He has the overhead drop kick crushing blow loaded because he just hit you with one, so now you have to guess overhead or low, in which either option will crushing blow you, or maybe he's going to throw you and you try to duck and he does the overhead there, or you think a command throw is coming, so you try to do something preemptively to avoid it. Either way, it's really, really good because he can just do it in place. There's no build up for you to like see it. So his forward throw here, you'll see it leaves the opponent very close to Rambo for like throw loop and strike throw pressure situations. And you'll also see that it has a crushing blow on it. Now, Kano is stunned here and is standing. During this point, he can't guard. So if Rambo were to go ahead and do a quick combo starter, he wouldn't be able to guard it. And because he's grounded, if Rambo chooses to keep the combo grounded, it's also guaranteed damage. It's inescapable. He can't break away out of it. All that damage is 100% guaranteed. And that's kind of strong off a throw. So here's how they balanced it. One, they gave it some interesting requirements. The first requirement is, ironically, in Mortal Kombat 11, you can't jump for 10 seconds. In Mortal Kombat 11, you can't jump. In Mortal Kombat 11. So that's one. The other prerequisite is you can't be hit in that 10-second time period either. So you have to go 10 seconds without being hit or jumping to have that crushing blow loaded. Now, they didn't go into detail on this aspect of it, but I believe that once it's loaded, it doesn't stay loaded. In other words, once it's loaded, if you haven't used it yet but end up getting hit or jump, I'm going to say it's no longer loaded, and then you have to reload it by going 10 more seconds without jumping or being hit. It's also not off his backward throw, it's only off his forward throw. So worst case scenario, you can always take the forward throw. I mean, the backward throw. You can always, excuse me, I'm dumb. You can always take the backwards throw and then say, all right, well, now let me see if I can hit him or make him jump, and then the forward crushing blow throw is off the table. So it's got a couple of safeguards in place to prevent this from being too strong. So I really like his base attacks. They're really, really good. All right, so now let's move on to default special moves. There's a part in here in which the video freezes. It's not your video. It's not this video here. On the stream, they had to pause it because when they recorded the example, they didn't give them enough time to explain what they wanted to explain. So they paused it, and then after they explained, they unpaused it and went on to the next special move. So let's take a look at Rambo's default special moves.
Awesome. Let's take a look real quickly at Rambo's default special moves.
So first up, he uses his bow. It's a really fast, high projectile. And the cool thing is it's almost like a stance. He can fire multiple, up to 3. He can let it go. He can just hang on it, wait a second, then shoot one. And none of that costs stamina, either defensive or offensive. Then he has this tripwire, which I think is like the crux of his space control. It's really fast. He has a close and far version. And it's a low. It pretty much forces the opponent to either walk in slowly, attempt to jump. Dashing is really risky. Basically, if they're moving, they're going to get hit. They're going to get knocked down, and then that sets up. He can either go into arrows, he could advance, or he can do it again. And it's kind of a move that makes you just sit still and look out for it. It's the main move that ties everything else together. It also is a pretty good combo ender. Then he has a slide. And this slide has a couple options. You can do it from really far by holding forward. You can actually roll backwards by holding back after, even on block, to make it hard to punish. It is an amplified that does more damage, with a crushing blow if he does it 3 times. Very similar to how Sub-Zero's amplified slide works. So I think this move's pretty good for advancing, if you want to go under something. It's decent for 50-50s. Like, you could use that with his Dropkick as an overhead low mix-up.
Okay, so his default projectile is his bow and arrow special here. And it's more of a stance. He pulls the bow out, he stands at the ready, and he can shoot 1, 2, and I believe they said finally up to 3 arrows, and then I guess you're forced out of this stance. The thing I like about it is the default projectile is something that's an iconic move of Rambo, you know, his bow and arrow. And I'm glad that the default projectile is something that's kind of interesting. It's not your typical, like, oh, fireball type move, right? It's like a stance in which I'm assuming he can cancel any time, be it after 1 or 2, or if he wants to go full 3 and the game gets him out of the stance himself. So I like it. He can show it to you, the stance, and not do it at all. Maybe bait something by showing you the stance, or he can still shoot 1, 2, or 3, cancel whenever he wants. I really like it because it's not your standard, like, oh, ho-hum, usual fireball. It's got a lot of creativity to it, and I think there'll be a lot of good ways to apply this. His tripwire here, there are 2 versions of. There's a long range and a short range, and of course you can do it in combos here for setup for wake up pressure. So the thing about this that's really good is the space that it occupies. You can't avoid this by doing something like an evasive move like Sub-Zero Slide or Sindel's Low Fireball. It occupies a very low space, which means if you're trying to approach on the ground, you have to block it or go airborne. Which one? Going airborne, that forces your movement. Rambo can force your movement by saying, okay, this guy's tired of blocking this or eating this, he's going to jump, and he can bait that out. Or he can restrict your movement by constantly putting him on the ground, and then maybe you're a little hesitant on your approach as you're trying to dash in or whatever, and you dash in and block, and then Rambo, instead of doing the tripwire, dashes in and meets you and then goes into more pressure, strike throw, whatever he's going to go into. I really like it because it's a way for Rambo to really restrict and control the opponent's movements. I really think this is a good attack here. Now I want to go into his slide. This slide can be done in a couple of ways. A short travel version by doing the slide and holding back, and a long traveling version by doing the slide and holding forward. You also have more options. Say if the slide is blocked, you can hold back and Rambo will roll backwards, and the opponent, I guess it becomes a little harder to punish. Even when it hits, Rambo can also hold it back, and he can choose to not hold back and get wake up pressure, or hold back and roll backwards and maybe bait something on wake up now that he's no longer next to you. You have options here. When you amplify it, it will crushing blow if you've hit 3 of these. So it's like kind of like Sub-Zero's, where once you hit X number of these, it stays loaded for the rest of the match. And then you can use that crushing blow version of it off the amplify whenever you see fit, whenever you feel like the time is best, whenever the time is right. You can use it by itself in combos. So it's really, really good. Also, like I said earlier, you can use this as a mix-up with his Dropkick. This, I think it does have a small dash animation, so it's not something that you can do from crouch, right? Like, do from crouch and remain crouching and go under the fireball. I believe Rambo is forced into a short period where he's standing up. So I don't think this is something like that where it's like a Sub-Zero crouching slide and you can go under the projectile. However, if you look at the run animation when it starts, maybe, again, it's tough to say, maybe you can mix it up at closer range with a quick dash into something or a slide. Maybe a quick dash and they're respected and they guard low, and maybe you throw or you get in and go into pressure. Not really sure. It's kind of hard to say. You kind of have to have it done to you, do it to somebody else, kind of see how people are going to react to it, etc. So, but I do think it has a lot of good uses, and I think it's a really, really strong move. Also, it is a low, so it can also restrict space along the lines of like a Sub-Zero slide. Okay, so now I want to go into Rambo's tournament variations. We're going to start with his first tournament variation, which is Veteran.
Let's take a look at Rambo's variation 1.
So the first thing is he gets this tripwire, and this is different than the other one. It sets up a combo if he amplifies it. There's no close or far, it knows where the opponent is. Pretty quick. And this is one of the main ways to get big combos with Rambo if you choose to use this. The second thing is the crawl, which I absolutely love. This is essentially a low stance. He has numerous moves from it. He has this quick slide. Then he has a grab. This is actually like a grab. If they're blocking, it'll hit them. And then he has a parry. And the parry's neat because it parries lows, mids, and highs. So if he's down in this, the opponent tries to hit him out of it, he can actually parry it. And then the parry and the throw have a crushing blow. If he crawls long enough, he'll be loaded, and if he grabs you, he smashes your face then.
Okay, so he has this rope move where he throws it out, grabs you by the feet, he can amplify it, string you up for a full combo, or he cannot amplify it and drop you on your head for maybe wake-up pressure or whatever else he's trying to set up. And then he has his combat crawl here, which I'm really glad made it into a tournament variation in general. A lot of times we see cool moves on a trailer, and then it's like, hey guys, I know you really, really like this cool looking move, but it's custom only, so better luck next life in using a move like this. So I'm glad they put it into one of his tournament variations. Now, as far as the rope move is, I thought it was, initially on the trailer, I couldn't tell if it was like something that he laid down or if it was just a standalone move. It's a standalone move where he just throws it out and just pulls you up. This doesn't have a close, medium, and far versions. You just pretty much do it, and it grabs them. Looks to have really good range. We see it's like full screen there, so no matter what. So it controls really good space. So it's a great ranged space control attack as well as a ranged combo starter. So I'm guessing he uses this to not just control space, but also I'm pretty sure he can cancel out of it off some of his normals into a combo. It's probably also a launcher that he can use. So he can use this in many ways. In his combat crawl here, he's got a couple of extensions. He's got his knife swipe. He has a throw there that grabs your leg, so obviously you can't just duck it. Then he has this parry here that parries all attacks as far as like lows, mids, overheads, etc. I believe it parries all normal attacks outside of jump in. So if you did a neutral jump kick, it wouldn't parry it. It gets a crushing blow based on distance traveled. So if he travels the required distance, which they burn specific on, both the parry and the throw will gain a crushing blow. So this is really good because initially people saw this and they thought, well, the combat crawl is probably really, really cool looking, but dude, I'll just hit you out of that, bro. He has that parry that's going to parry your normals. Again, I don't believe it parries jumping attacks. No parries really do. But I could be wrong, so let's have to wait and see on that. But as far as this, LOL, bro, Omegalol, I'll just hit him with like a down 4. He has options for that. So I'm glad that they didn't just make this some type of, oh, look, here's this crawl that you'll never hit anybody with anything with. They'll just hit you out of it. I really like this. That's really good. And it's not based on, I don't think like distance traveled. I mean, as far as you must start it from full screen or half screen or whatever, I believe it's how long he's actually crawling. So you could set this up and be like right in front of somebody's face and be crawling. And they're like, I don't want to stick an attack out right now because he might parry. So as they're waiting to put their attack on the screen, you might be able to throw them or keep crawling. And if you have that much of a read on exactly when they're going to do it, you can use the crawl for the extended period of time, and then they say, all right, now I'm going to stick an attack out. He's not whiffing anything, and then you parry at the exact moment, and you get the crushing blow. So something that looked cool, but people weren't sure, it's probably going to be worthless. Not true at all. It looks really, really good, and looks like something that's probably going to have a lot of practical uses in this variation here. All right, so now let's move on to his next variation, the Patriot variation.
So let's take a look at variation 2 for Rambo.
So variation 2, he can pull an M60 that he hid in the leaves out of the ground. And this is a very fast projectile that's like a stream of bullets. And he also gets the Claymore Mine. And what's fun about this is once it's triggered, it can blow up either opponent, or either person, be it him or the opponent. He can put it down and it lasts for quite a long time. And if he amplifies it, he puts leaves over it so it's invisible. So there's fun stuff you can do. You can put it down, let it sit there for a while, do your little setups, and then just when they forget about it, they get popped out. And then lastly, his tripwire is replaced by this log trap. And it's pretty much the opposite of it. Instead of covering the ground, it covers the air. It'll still hit when it was standing, but it's also awesome for anti-air.
Okay, so he has this, his projectile attack here. He gains his machine gun. I don't think they said it replaces his bow and arrow. So he actually has both of them. So that's really good. Then he has his Claymore Mine here, which apparently appears to be like an instant Aaron Black stick of dynamite, in which it can not only explode and launch the opponent, but it can also launch you. Then he can amplify it and covers it with leaves. And who knows where it is? Obviously, you should know. You put it down. If you're a trapper, you would know precisely where it is. And you can knock people onto it for big combos. Maybe like put it down and throw somebody onto it, etc. Here we see his log. 3 of these, if you amplify it and hit 3 in a row, it'll crushing blow. And they basically say, hey, you can put the Claymore down. And if they want to jump over it, you can also use this log here. One of the cool things I like about the Claymore, they said it lasts for quite a long period of time, especially when you amplify it. They didn't exactly specify, so we don't know. And I'm assuming because it hits, I don't know if they said this or not. I think it stays on block and hit. I don't know if they specified it. Maybe I missed it. But because it explodes you both, I'm going to say it stays. So even if you like jump kick Rambo and he blocks it, or you hit Rambo, you still land on the Claymore and you explode. So this is really, really good, especially the Amplify one where maybe you can knock him down from range, amplify, cover him with cover it with leaves, jump over it, maybe back throw them onto it, etc. Find some way to do it. For this projectile here, I want you to look at the arcing low, the arc of this. It looks like you can't duck it. So moving on to the log trap part of this variation, something that you would think, how practical is that going to be? Well, obviously it's good for Claymore situations. Put the Claymore down. Hey, I don't want to run into it. I'm going to try to jump over it. And then you would use it to punish them for jumping. Hitting 3 in a row, maybe. I don't really know. That doesn't seem super practical. But the real practicality comes of the log really comes in the mid-range of the attack. So you'll see as the log swoops down at its mid-range, I believe you can't duck it. I'm pretty sure you can't neutral duck it. So at that range, here you have something that you can't jump and you can't duck. So it's not only good for people trying to get around the Claymore mine, it's also extremely practical for people who just want to move in mid-range. Can't duck it, can't jump it. It's very restrictive. It's very great for space control. And it's something that I think will be a huge part of this variation, not just in conjunction with using it with the Claymore mine, but just as its own standalone move at certain ranges. All right, now we're going to move into his third variation, his Drifter variation.
I think I'll probably going with the next one we're showing, which is variation 3.
Me too. I love these animations. So this one is like a grab version. He gets a couple of his strings get grab unders, and they are actual grabs. Like if you're blocking, you get hit. And then this one is a hit, but it is like a restand. So you can end your combo with it, and you'll be standing, and he gets advantage. It also just looks really, really nasty. Then he gets a command grab. The cool thing is when he amplifies it, you can choose which way to throw you. And it has a crushing blow for punishing a wake-up roll. So let's see, you try to get up, you don't want to deal with the setups, you roll, and oops, you get disemboweled. Which is really harsh for trying to roll out of the way.
Setting something up here for the next one.
Yeah, unfortunately forgot what I was setting up. Oh, that's right. The combat roll. So this replaces the slide. And it's almost sort of like Reptile's elbow from Ultimate MK3. He goes past you, and then he has a couple of different options. He can do this quick slice, he can do a really fast overhead if he amplifies it, or he can just cancel it. And it's really, really quick, and can be kind of hard to deal with.
Okay, so in this variation here, one, this is the coolest skin that will ever exist in the game. So whoever made this skin, whoever put this skin in, I'm so glad you did. This is the coolest skin that will ever be. This is true Rambo right here, boys. All right, so this is his up-close variation, his hand-to-hand combat variation, in which he has throws off of normal attacks. So like you'll do like a normal attack and then like 1+3 or 2+4 or whatever throw command they're going to assign. And these are true throws. They will be unblockable. Some of them will, like here it knocks down. Some will reverse positions. And some will restand here. Now, again, these are unblockable throws. So they didn't say if they were high or mids. Some might be mids, some might be highs. You might have to neutral duck some, neutral jump others, interrupt others. It's pretty much going to be a guess. This is how I'm assuming he's going to use it. And he's also going to have tick throws into his command throw here. And his command throw will trigger a crushing blow if the opponent tries to roll. And then he gets a crushing blow. So they said his command throw is... I don't think they said you can reverse positions on non-amplify, but on amplify... Not reverse, but I don't think you can choose which direction they go on non-amplify. I might have heard that wrong, but for sure on amplify, you can choose which direction. Again, I could be wrong, and you might be able to put them either direction no matter what. So I'm really pleased with this because I was, like, he needs to be devastating up close. He as a hand-to-hand expert, in conjunction with these quick, fast mids, these good mids that he has, he needs something to be fearful of in close. You can't have characters like, well, I'll just rush Rambo down so he can't set up his traps and not have a variation where he's like, I'm Rambo. I am the hand-to-hand expert here in this game. People should be very afraid to be near Rambo, and I think they did this. I think these attacks to throws are actually going to be devastating. And then he has the command throw on top of that to complement it. So I think this is going to be really, really good here. And now I also want to look at his combat role. So as they describe this is similar to Reptile's elbow dash. If you're not familiar with that, Reptile's dash goes through you no matter what. You cannot impede him from going to the other side of you. And then when he goes to the other side of you here, Rambo has a couple of options. He can do a swipe, a quick knife swipe. He can amplify and do an overhead, or he can do a... he can just cancel it, right? Another bar to cancel it. So he can amplify it for either a cancel or an overhead, or not amplify at all and just do the swipe. And the crushing blow on the swipe, they said there's the overhead and there's the cancel. They said the swipe is triggered by punish, but it says counter here. So I'm guessing on punish or counter, no matter what, if they're hitting buttons, be it as a punish or as a counter, that this is going to be a crushing blow. So this is really, really good because you have scenarios where he does an attack into a throw, and you say, well, I don't want to take that, I'm going to hit a button or whatever. He uses his combat roll and then slashes you for a counter hit, gets the crushing blow, or maybe if you're ducking, he does an overhead or just cancels it. Or he can even use it to reverse positions and cancel. And if you think he's going to cancel, he can not cancel and just use the swipe, the knife swipe, for a counter hit and a crushing blow. Just a lot of options here that he can use this for. This is really, really good. It's a really solid attack. But even though we went through all three of his variations, we're still not done because they went into something that's not in a tournament variation, but it is a really, really cool custom move.
Then lastly, he has one more move that's not in his default move list, but I really wanted to show it because, well, I think it's awesome.
Every new character, we have one or two new things that we've kind of never tried before, actually. And
yeah, this is one of the weirder crushing blows.
This one is pretty fantastic. So let's take a look at the old bug here.
So as we know, as Troutman explained, he's trained to eat stuff that make a billy goat puke. And in the game, we show that by an insect crawls by and he actually eats it and gets health back. And if his fatal blow is on cooldown, it's a crushing blow of the bug, which gives him hella energy back. The downside to this is if he eats too many, he then vomits and he's stunned.
Okay, so he has this move where he can eat a bug and gain some life back. But if he eats a bug while his fatal blow is on cooldown, he gets a ton of health back. And of course, even when the crushing blow has been used, he can still continuously eat bugs to gain smaller amounts of life. But if he eats too many, he gets sick, he throws up, and then he's vulnerable for full combo. So kind of cool, but again, something you're only going to see in customs. It's not something that's going to be available in the tournament variations of the game. Overall, I'm really happy with Rambo. He looks really original. Sometimes, in other in the past we see characters, and when we go through the combat cast, we say, oh, for sure, this is the best variation here. I don't really think that's the case with Rambo, or even Rain necessarily. I think in both of these characters, and definitely Rambo here, it's kind of like all three variations are really, really good in their own way. And this is what people have really been asking for a lot in the game. Like, hey, can you make the variations good in their own way instead of like, this is just a generic, variation, whatever, not much depth to it. We already know what the best variation is. No point in playing the other two. Rambo is definitely not that character. He's definitely, I think, going to be very good in all three variations, and I think they will all have uses in the game. So I'm really, really happy with how they did Rambo. And I love Rambo skins. It's Rambo, and they did a great job on this. It'll be interesting to see how they did the other variation changes. They hinted at this in the combat cast. We'll talk more about this at a later time. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with Rambo. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. What did you guys think of the combat cast? Are you happy with Rambo? Don't think he's going to be very good. You don't care about him. You love him. You can't wait to main him. You're not going to try him at all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I always appreciate all the feedback I get from you guys. As always, everyone, thanks for all the support. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more content.